Hello, my name is Rebecca Woodall. I'm going to be talking about a literature review on laser and light-based hair removal devices. The following potential conflict of interest relationships are germane to our presentation: PhD, stipend and expenses paid by Knowledge Economy Skills Scholarships. There are multiple devices available on the market, so deciding which to buy can be difficult, especially when most do not have published data to back their claims. The new medical devices regulations for the EU, which will begin to apply in May 2020, affects all optical devices sold in the EU emitting infrared, visible or UV radiation, and will lead to safer and better performing products. This is important as safety is a high priority. As consumers are unlikely to have much knowledge of energy-based devices, many include safety features such as skin tone sensors and contact switches, as well as clear warning labels on the packaging and on the devices themselves. The literature was searched for using various online academic search engines. All types of clinical trials with a sample size of at least 10 individuals were included. We found only 14 published articles which fit our criteria. Due to this, we created a simple comparative matrix to analyse the findings. This is just part of the matrix, as it's far too big to fit on one slide. We included all of the available home use hair removal energy-based devices, and it included many other sections, such as what safety features are included, how long the study lasted, and what side effects were noted. Only 5 devices available to consumers were found to have published clinical work. Of these, only 2 are still available to buy, and only 1 is a recent model. This graph shows the findings of the average hair reductions 3 months after the final treatment, with the exception of the top bar. This is for the Me-Elos, which received 3 monthly maintenance treatments, and the results from the application of the final treatment. As you can see, there is a considerable difference between each study, with the study on the P&G prototype laser getting a return to baseline, whereas a 78.1% reduction was found in a study with the Silken Glide. After 6 months, findings are slightly more stable, though the findings with the iPulse Personal at 87% reduction is considerably higher than the 37.8% finding from the Silken Home Pulse Light. Ulster and Tansy's study on the Silken device, shown in purple, looked at the differences between 4 treatment sites. They found significant differences between sites, the biggest difference being 15.8% between the leg and the axilla. The longest follow-up period was 12 months after the final treatment. All of these were for the original Tria device, and it was only 2 papers, both written by Wieland. Despite being the same device, the findings from the first study are 11.3% less than the findings from the lowest setting in the second study. Wieland's second study looked at the differences between settings on the Tria device, with the results in blue. As you can see, there are differences, especially at the highest setting, with an average reduction of 65%. The side effects in all 14 studies were relatively similar. Almost all studies reported mild erythema, edema, and a small amount of discomfort. In some cases, this discomfort was too much, with a small number of subjects dropping out due to pain, but this rarely occurred. There were some outliers with regard to side effects, including increased hair counts, hyper or hypopigmentation, crusting, and feeling a burning sensation during treatment. However, again, these were rare. Beyond side effects, there were 2 other safety findings within the literature search. The first was one study on the Tria device. When the subjects were recruited, they were asked to decide, based on the packaging and user manual, if they considered themselves to fit the criteria for the device. Findings showed that 80% of subjects who did not fit the criteria for appropriate use believed that they did. The second was that despite these devices being home use, many studies were clinic-based. Some studies had the investigator apply the treatments for the subjects. Others had the subjects administer the treatment themselves. However, the investigator was present to answer questions and correct a subject if they were applying the device incorrectly. These 4 devices do not have published clinical papers, however they have had related work conducted. The top 2 devices, the Rheon Salon Laser and the Rheon Evolution IPL, have had clinical studies conducted and the results were presented at international conferences. However, as the results were never published in a journal, this did not fit our criteria and so the results were not included. On the bottom left is the E1 IPL device. There is a published article comparing the pain of using the IPL against hot wax rather than efficacy. Findings showed that the IPL was much more tolerable than using hot wax. The final device is the Philips Lumia. Philips had an in vitro study on cultured hair follicles published for an unnamed device. This study provided important information about how hair follicles respond to IPL treatment, clearly showing the effects of light treatment compared to control samples. For both the E1 and the Philips device, no clinical work has been published. The literature review only found 14 clinical papers, covering just 5 devices, 3 of which are now out of date. The findings within the papers highlight a lot of differences between studies. For example, almost all papers claim to have long-term results. However, this varied from 3 months to 12 months. 12 months should really be what is considered long-term, and future studies should follow up for this period to assess long-term results accurately. Another difference is how many treatment sites were investigated. Some looked at one specific area of the body, such as facial hair. Others looked at multiple sites, but did not highlight the differences between them. Alster and Tansey looked at multiple sites and showed there was a significant difference between them. This finding is important and is something that should be investigated in future studies. Many IPL devices have multiple treatment settings, and most studies appear to utilise this based on the skin tone of the subject. Whelan looked at this in his second TRIA study and showed there were significant differences between high, medium and low settings. When assessing a device, the results between its settings should be investigated. This graph shows the differences between the number of participants in each study. Many had few participants, with only 3 having more than 40 participants and only 6 having more than 20. Few studies had multiple cohorts. These differences make it difficult to compare studies and may be the reason between the highly contrasting results. The inconsistencies between studies is evident when you compare the results on the Silken home pulsed IPL. 2 studies published in 2010 had 2 drastically different results 3 months after the final treatment. This either suggests that the device gives very inconsistent results, or more likely, that the different parameters between studies lead to very different findings. Our findings showed that side effects were mild, however there were rare occurrences in some studies where a more serious side effect occurred. All of these are cleared up by the final follow-up of the study. No study investigated ocular safety, and a few mentioned it, despite the ocular hazards that these devices may pose. Whelan's findings highlighted that despite the information given by manufacturers, sometimes there is still confusion for consumers about whether or not they should use a device. While 18% does not sound like much, it is almost 1 in 5, which adds up quickly. Many studies did not simulate using home use devices well. By just having an investigator present while the subject uses the device, it means the subject can be guided or ask anything they're unsure about. In an actual home setting, the consumer must rely upon the information provided by manufacturers. By supplying information to medical professionals in the way of scientific data, they are in a much better position to advise patients about whether a device is suitable for them and how to use it safely. To conclude, more published work is needed for home use devices. Studies should be randomised, controlled and independently assessed, last at least 12 months, treat a significant number of patients in different cohorts, and have various treatment sites. Our findings show that these devices are mostly effective and do not pose any safety concerns when they are used correctly. Evidence of a device efficacy and safety is paramount for a sustainable future. Thank you for listening.